morning, integrated topics students. This is Ms. Conner again for March the 29th and also the lesson for March the 30th. So today we're going to need a pencil, calculator. I'm going to collect your homework, but before I collect the homework, I'm going to go over 2 problems. But we're all going to need a little loose leaf paper for a quiz. Yes, a quiz. This will be the last quiz for the 3rd quarter. So first off, there's 2 problems that I wanted to go over for the homework before I collect it. So the first problem was number 3. It dealt with 2x plus 4, which is times x plus 1. So I know it's multiplication because when I look in between the 2 parentheses, I do not have addition nor subtraction symbol. So that's telling me I'm doing multiplication. As stated last lesson, we can either do this by using the FOIL method, or we can use the box method. So I'm going to show this basically both ways. So the first one deals with the FOIL method. And with the FOIL method, all you're doing is basically distributing each term to the second parenthesis. For example, we have this 2x, and I'm going to distribute that to the x and to this positive 1. And remember, when I distribute, I'm doing multiplication. So I'm asking myself, 2x times x gives me 2x squared. 2x times positive 1 will give me a positive 2x. Okay? So now I don't have to distribute anything else. So now I'm looking at my positive 4. And I'm going to distribute that to everything in that second parenthesis. So 4 times x gives me a positive 4x. And 4 times 1 gives me a positive 4. So if you notice, right here in the center of it all are my like terms. My 2x plus my 4x. I can combine those and I will get a positive 6x. Everything else that we wrote earlier is just simply coming down. So I have my 2x squared right here, and I have my plus 4. And this is my answer. Okay? So this is that 2x squared plus 4x plus 4, 6x plus 4, is basically after is the answer that I get after I finish multiplying. So that's doing it by using FOIL. So now if I wanted to do the same thing, but I wanted to use box, I'm going to give myself some room. I know I'm multiplying 2 separate terms. I'm multiplying 2 binomials. So that means I should have a total of 4 boxes. So on this side box, I'm going to have 2x plus 4. And on this top box, I'm going to have x plus 1. As you recall from the last lesson, in order to fill the boxes, I'm going to need to multiply. So in order to fill this box, I need to multiply 2x times x, which gives me 2x squared. To multiply this box that I just put a dot in, I have to multiply 2x times 1, which gives me simply 2x. To multiply this box, I'll have to multiply x times 4, which gives me 4x. And to multiply this box, I'm multiplying 4 times 1, which gives me a positive 4. And as you can tell, on the diagonal, here are my like terms. And I'm going to add those 2 things together. So when I do that, overall, I get 2x squared plus 6x plus 4. Hopefully you notice, either I do it the FOIL way or I do it the box, I'm going to get the same exact answer. Okay? So when it comes down to the quiz time, you guys get to pick which way you like. If you like the box method, do the box method. If you like the FOIL method, do the FOIL method. The next one is at 8 minus 3z squared. So in order for us to figure this out, kind of had to go back into our minds where we had to deal with exponents. So I noticed that inside that parenthesis, this whole parenthesis, this is my base. And that 2, that's my exponent. So what this is telling me, I'm multiplying the base to itself 2 times, meaning I should have 8 minus 3z times 8 minus 3z. So that's how we'll have to set it up first. So from here, I'm going to take what I know. I'm either going to do the FOIL method or I'm going to do the box method. So let's start with FOIL first. So I have my positive 8, and I'm simply going to distribute to everything in that second parenthesis. So I have 8 times 8, which gives me 64. And then I have 8 times a negative 3z, which gives me a minus 24z. And we don't have anything else to distribute. So now I can go to this minus 3z. And I'm going to distribute that to everything inside the parenthesis. So negative 3z times 8 gives me a negative 24z. And a negative 3z times a negative 3z will give me a positive 9z squared. Okay, so remember, there's an exponent of 1 with those variables of z's. So when we're multiplying, we are adding the exponents. That's where that z squared came from. So again, hopefully you notice right here in the heart of everything, we have our like terms. So we have a negative 24z minus 24z. So obviously I'm going to get a negative, and since they're the same, I'll add them. So I get a negative 48z. From this point, the 64 comes down, and my plus 9z squared comes down. And this is my result. Okay, so it's just a slight different take. I know it's like, oh, we didn't have that example, but we have to use a lot of the stuff that we've learned to apply to everyday situations. Okay, so after I collected homework, we gone to the missed most quiz question. So we had our quiz previous to this one, and I kept seeing the same solutions with some people. I wanted to show this earlier, but I had a lot of students that still needed to take the quiz due to absences. So I had to hold off on this one because I don't want to show them the answers, and all of a sudden they're going to have their correct answers on their tests, and it just wasn't going to be fair. So prior to this quiz, kind of broke down the top 4 missed questions. So for number 2 from that quiz, I'm saying x to the 5th is being raised to the 4th power. Anytime I have an exponent being raised by an exponent, I'm actually multiplying my exponents. Okay? What I kept seeing was people were adding their exponents. If it said x to the 5th times x to the 4th like this will be the correct solution. Well, once I simplify it with x to the 9th. But it's not in this format. It's in this format. So this, x to the 20th, will be my correct solution. For number 6, a lot of people didn't really get it wrong. There was one thing that was missing. So I have 5x to the 4th y squared being raised to the 3rd power. So that 5x to the 4th y to the 2nd, that's all underneath the parenthesis. So that's telling me, just like the previous example we have for the homework, that this is my base. And we could do it in 3 separate parentheses. Write out 5x to the fourth, y to the second, write that out 3 times. Or we could raise everything inside that parenthesis to the 3rd power. That means we want to raise that 5 to the 3rd power. We want to raise that, I'll do it this way, x to the 4th, raise that to the 3rd power. And then I want to raise my y squared, raise that to the 3rd power. So everything has to be raised to the 3rd power. For the most part, a lot of people did give me x to the 12th times y to the 6th. A lot of students did give me that. But what they did forget was to give me my answer of 5 raised to the 3rd power, which is simply 5 times 5 times 5, or 125. Okay? So if you're going to raise everything in the parentheses, make sure everything is being raised to that 3rd power. Okay? The last two, number 7. Number 7 threw a lot of people off. And the reason why, they forgot to raise everything to the 2nd power, and they forgot to raise everything to the 2nd power for the 2nd parenthesis. So for the 1st parenthesis, this is saying that 2 is being raised to the 2nd power, my C is being raised to the 2nd power, and that D is being raised to the 2nd power. We're going to take that information and multiply by 4 being raised to the 2nd power, and that C to the 3rd being raised to the 2nd power. So everything right now has to be raised to the 2nd power. 2 squared is 4. Then you have C squared, D squared, times 16 C to the 6th. Quite a few students left this as your answer, but this is not completely simplified. They're telling me I need to multiply those 2 monomials together to get my final solution. So a lot of people did give me C to the 8th, because you're adding my exponents, and D squared. But a lot of people forgot to multiply that 4 and 6 together. This should have been my final answer. Okay? So when it says simplify, go ahead and multiply. If you notice in our notes, we never left it in this form. We never left it still keeping in multiplication. When we still had whole numbers that we could multiply together, and we still had like terms with our base of C, go ahead and put those things together. Since I'm multiplying, I'm adding these 2 exponents. That's where this 8 came from. And finally, number 8, division. With the whole numbers, we're actually going to divide. So negative 12 divided by 4 gives me a negative 3. And we all said that when we divide, we subtract our exponents. So my exponent is going to be m raised to the negative square. But we always said we don't want to have a negative exponent. Okay? So that means we have to do our reciprocal, meaning we need to drop something in the denominator. In this case, we have to ask ourselves, what is being raised to the negative square? Right now, only this m is being raised to the negative square. So that's the only thing that really should drop down in the denominator. So now it's not going to be a negative square, it's just going to be m squared. And then the negative 3 is going to stay in the numerator. What I saw on most papers was this. They also dropped the 3 in the denominator. Yes, 3 is a negative number. I will admit to that. But only the things that are associated with the negative exponent is dropping down in the denominator, which in this case will be my m. Okay, so then what was in blue right here? This should have been my solution. Okay, so there's some people I did give partial credit for because a lot of those, I think problems 5 through the end was basically worth 2 points. So if you saw anybody that gets a -1, yeah, you got that -3m to the negative square. I did give you a point for at least getting to that point. Okay, so those were the most misused questions that I saw. So after we talk about that, I'm going to have them try 3 problems on their own. Okay, so they write out the problems, and we're actually going to solve it. So we had 2x plus 4 times -8x plus 3, 7g minus 4h times 7g plus 4h, and 9d minus 6 squared. Okay, so what I'm looking at is number 1 and number 2, they're looking at their practice of the FOIL method and the box method. And then for problem number 3, I'm just making sure that they understood from that homework problem what we had to do with our base. So for number 1, if I want to do the FOIL method, I'll do the FOIL method for the first one and the box method for the second, just to be fair. So I have my 2x, and I'm distributing to everything inside the second parenthesis. So I have 2x times a -8x, which gives me a -16x squared. Then 2x times a +3 will give me a +6x. Sometimes I have to emphasize that you're multiplying, not adding. So after we do that one, then we got the +4, and we're going to distribute that. So 4 times a -8 gives me a -32x. 4 times a +3 gives me a +12. And hopefully we all notice that inside this parenthesis, we have our like terms. So it's a +6 minus 32. So we got a -26x. And then my -16x squared is coming down. And my +12 is coming down. So regardless of which way they did it, they should have that as a solution. Okay, going to number 2. Oops, not yet. We have 7g minus 4h times 7g plus 4h. So this one, I'll try the box method. So since I have 2 terms times 2 terms, I should have 4 boxes. So on this side, I'm going to put my 7g and my minus 4h. And up top, I'll put my 7g plus 4h. And then all the students ask me, doesn't matter which order do I put it in? Not really, but you want to be consistent with your process so you don't get confused. So I like to put the first parenthesis on its side and the second parenthesis on top. So now, to fill the boxes, I have to multiply. So 7 times 7 gives me 49, and g times g will give me g squared. 7 times 4 gives me 28, and g times h will give me gh. Okay, think of the alphabet. So 7 times -4 is a -28, and then g times 8 gives me gh. Then 4 times -4 gives me -16, and then h will give me h squared. You notice on the diagonals, you have like terms but opposite signs. So they're going to cancel each other out. So my total will be 49g squared minus 16h squared. That's going to be my solution. Okay? And last one. I keep doing that. So again, I have my base and it's being written out twice. So again, we can either do the box or we can do foil. So right now, I'll try box again. So since I have two terms being multiplied by itself, I'm going to write each term for each box. And in order to fill it, I'm going to have to multiply. So then in here I have 9 times 9 gives me 81d squared. Then inside you have a negative 54d. Over here I have a negative, no, I lied, positive 36 for this one. And then over here I have a negative 54d. So this time on the diagonal are my like terms. So then I could just simply write it out. I have my 81d squared minus 108d plus 36. And there is a shorter way, and I'm going to explain the shorter way next time, but I really want to make sure that everyone understands this process of doing the foil or doing the box to really help them understand the whole bit of multiplying polynomials. Okay? So, now I can flip over to the side. So after I did those three, the remainder of the class, they were working on the Open Notes quiz. Again, they can use a separate sheet of paper to do all their work on and then turn it in with the quiz. So once the completion of the quiz happened, a little celebration, definitely no homework. I know, it's a rare moment. But if anything, they'll have the remainder of the class time to do their quiz. There's no homework for this evening. I'll also put it on the calendar. And by the time we see each other again, it's just ready to get started for fourth quarter, even though Thursday is a 2-hour early dismissal, which is the 31st. So there won't be a recording for that. We're going to do an activity and get things ready for their finals to start to have them think in that process and also get ready for fourth quarter. All right, so have a good one. Take care.